Hello,
Hi, Elizabeth.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I hope we get some people today.
Yeah, I think we will get some. I've got some RSVPs for yes and some maybes.
Okay, okay, cool, cool. Max will be here shortly. I'm gonna quickly go get my phone. I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Hey, and did you get the list of upcoming events for me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm
Yep.
going to, okay. I'm gonna for the conversation, I'm gonna send out a questionnaire, I think, for people. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Hey Max,
Hello, hello.
how are you?
Now you should be able to hear me. There we go.
Oh yeah.
Doing great.
There's
How about you?
you got the fish tank out of the middle of the floor.
Yeah. There's no more
Baby
swimming
pool.
pool in the living room. Always something going on around here, but no more swimming pool.
How are
So
the fish? How are the fish fishing? How are they swimming around?
they're doing pretty good. They've made it through the transfer pretty well. I got one or two that's not doing the best, but I think it's more from like getting bullied. So I'm trying to catch one right now, but it will not allow me to catch it. I've tried relentlessly for about 2 days, so it's hard.
That's funny.
Go figure, fish don't like to be caught.
Go figure.
Hi,
Hi
everybody.
Pat, how are you?
Hey,
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing good.
So I guess this is my
doing
otter
great.
that's showing up. It's so weird. Um. Oh, Elizabeth, that's my note taker. Okay, whatever. I mean, at this point in time, agents are just like doing all sorts of stuff that we don't
They're
even know what they're doing. And I think it's on my behalf, but maybe it's not.
they're just trying to look out for you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, that's what they tell me, but I'm just not sure about that, Pat. Um, well, we're going to give everybody a little bit of time to get here. I have a feeling it's going to be low turnout just because, not because of you, Max, because you're definitely a hot item, but it's because it's the summer and even I am actually at on vacation, but I'm here, so it's all good. I'm sure everybody else is in various stages of that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
But I actually we'll I'll introduce it when I get going. But I'm actually taking a class this summer. I'm taking a class and I'm teaching a class, and then what I'm taking is from Max Thomas.
Oh yeah.
Great.
So a lot of fun. We're gonna get a much more condensed kind of version of some of the stuff we've actually been going through in that class and what they are continuing to go through. So it's a lot of
Cool,
good stuff.
great,
Awesome.
okay, cool. Um, yeah, so so
Oh
it's we've
yes.
got a nice group of our regulars here, and we'll give it a little bit of time. We'll give it to like 4:05 to get everybody here, but I'll go ahead and start talking about some of the um, administrative business stuff that we have while we're waiting. So what we're going to do next week next month is a conversation around what your tech stack is for building an immersive. And I'm going to send out a survey so that everybody can kind of talk about what they're using and two more people in the waiting room. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do a survey so everybody can talk about what they're using, what they're teaching, what they're using for their practical work, and really try to, and then sort of curate a conversation around that. So we'll do some breakout rooms and that kind of thing so that everybody can talk about the pros and cons and sort of what they love, what they hate, and all that. So that's going to be for July because that seems fitting since most of our classes begin in August. Um,
That's
and
great,
then,
Elizabeth.
yeah, go, yeah. You good with that? Anything you want to add to that?
No, I was just going to say I'll probably pull a few things that we'll learn next week into my course in the fall. So,
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. So then, and then I think the next one is it the 360 stuff that you're going to help with, Pat?
yeah, I would be next.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So then we're going to talk about um, shooting in 360 worlds, dome kind of work. And hopefully we're going to get somebody from COSM, um, maybe that can come and talk about that too, because for us in Atlanta, COSM is coming here. And for people like Pat, you're working in that space. So that'll be exciting. And then we're going to talk about the journal, and we're going to like talk to Jessica Clark and Sarah Willison about running the Immerse Journal and what we can learn from that. And Michael is going to lead that conversation. And yeah, so then I'm looking for any kinds of other topics. I'll send out another survey to see what other topics you all want to go in. But that's what's coming up. So I wanted to just kind of cover that. Um, and so next, uh, I think that let's go ahead and I'm going to introduce Max and then let him take it away because I this is it's going to be a robust and deep conversation. And so anyway, you all know I work at Georgia State University at the Creative Media Industries Institute, and um, uh, Max Thomas came from MFA and then industry and came on as a professor of practice and has really helped set up our virtual production studio and does a lot of 3D world building and special effects and has been building that part of our program. But as everyone has gotten deep into AI, Max has gone super deep and is using the tool ComfyUI. And I just want to tell you all, Max is going to talk about it, but Max has worked on Electric State. He and his company did all of the motion capture for Electric State. They worked for a bunch of other, big Hollywood films and projects. So, Max, take it away.
Oop, hello, hello. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah, we see your full screen.
Okay, awesome. Just wanted to make sure before I started diving in. So, hi guys, I'm Max Thomas. I'm a professor of practice at Georgia State, as Elizabeth said. I also have a company called Actor Capture. We work on films, doing a lot of like virtual production, VFX workflows. We do a lot of basically CG animated characters with motion capture, full body performance capture, things like that. Well, over the past kind of I guess 2 years, we've seen things like kind of rapidly shift. And even though we've still worked on some really cool projects and got to do the Electric State and Lao Lao Crocodile and Suicide Squad 2 and a lot of really really fun things like that, we just have seen that a lot of industry has shifted in kind of a different direction. And it's not that we're not still using these technology and not still like going to go do this kind of more traditional approach now. Actually just got back from London doing a shoot for BBC with this, and it was really cool to go over there and have an opportunity to do a little bit of motion capture in London. So what I would say is that a lot of people kind of think sometimes that AI is like scary or going to take their job or going to do and in some ways it may, like it very well may, or it will at least probably shift some things or change the way that you work in some capacity. regardless what you do or what career field you're in. So one thing that I've kind of really taken off with and fell in love with is something called ComfyUI. And so this is basically just a node-based network and a way of processing AI, essentially stable diffusion and video workflows, essentially image to 3D models, text to 3D models, lots of different variants of options that you can use this to do. It's just a kind of open source tool and playground for you to kind of bring in the latest open source AI models and even things that have like API calls that you have to pay for. You can totally hook them up here as well. If you wanted to use something, like VO3, or you wanted to use Kling, or you wanted to use essentially anything like that, you can set it up with API calls and where it still charges you based on your tokens. But for me personally, I'm really big into kind of open source AI, and I've watched like I got back from Taiwan in January and I got to really see some of the new tools that were coming out of China and how they were open source and free and accessible. And so I say that, but with the caveat that you have to already somewhat have a powerful computer. So if you're doing stuff with like Unreal Engine and you have like a 4090 or a 5090 or something that really pushes, then you're pretty much already ready, at least for image-based workflows, and can probably even dabble in a little bit of video. Um, so if you want to run these things at like a super high level and you want to be able to run the latest and greatest models, then you really have to have like absolutely crazy amounts of power. And so for most people, it's not reasonable to go buy like a $10,000 graphics card or a $30,000 graphics card to be able to, or let's say a graphics accelerator. They don't even really call them GPUs at that level anymore. Um, See, I'm going to minimize this down and kind of show you something called RunPod. So ComfyUI needs a lot of power to run it at the highest level. Many people don't have that. But that's okay because I'm going to show you something called RunPod. Like me personally, I'm running on a Quadro Ada A6000, and really it's still not good enough anymore since the RTX 6000 Pro came out literally like 2 or 3 weeks ago with 96 gigs of VRAM. And so that's what I will be working to shift to myself. But until then, I use something called RunPod. And so I'll just pull up their website from scratch so you can see what that looks like, and I'll make it full screen. And so essentially what this allows you to do is run on any computer that you have. It can literally be like a potato. It could be, a Chromebook or even an old computer as long as you had a web browser. Essentially, what it's going to allow you to do is rent a computer with a GPU to run something like ComfyUI, whether you have that super expensive GPU or not. I've been using this with my students, and this is how I've been helping them get access to GPUs that they may not be able to readily afford. So once you log in, I'll just close out of that tab and open it fresh. So once you log in order to use RunPod, you have to actually, essentially add some credits to it. So you have to go in like your billing. You can pay with Bitcoin, you can pay with regular money. You can load up as little as $10, but I would start with probably like 25 to be able to get your system running. You can't actually do it without, loading things up to this for you to have access to get that money. And so once you've done that, you essentially can, you want to create a storage next, which doesn't sound that exciting. And the exciting thing that everybody wants to get to is the pods, which are your GPUs. And I can show you those in just a second. But since I guess I can just hit deploy. So essentially what I want to do is choose where I want to host my storage, like anywhere in the world. I've been finding a lot of access to stuff inside of like Chicago, Illinois, North Carolina, Texas, different places like that. Atlanta is usually pretty booked up, honestly, and they don't have a lot of the lower end cards for rent here in Atlanta. So I've been like using these 4090s, and for a budget option, I found that you can run these RTX A5000s that have 24 gigs of VRAM, and they're a little bit slower, but they're only 26 cents an hour instead of 70 cents an hour like a 4090 is. And so the really cool thing is with the setup, it has a template that just you click one button and it basically fires everything up instead of doing like a local installation like what I have here in like you have to go in and do all kind of Python dependencies. And I'm not saying like if you have an awesome computer that has like plenty of power, like definitely go install it. Like because you need at least 24 gigs of VRAM to really run this properly. But if you have it, it's great. And an NVIDIA GPU. So just to simplify things, the 4090 is the recommended card for the workflow, and that's what I would choose. But the first thing I need to do is set up storage. And if you don't do this, is where everybody messes up in trying to learn how to run these virtual computers. Is that they go here and they get it a pod and they fire it up, but they haven't set any storage, so everything fails and it doesn't run properly. So this took me like one or two times of failing to figure this out, surprisingly. And so I come over here to storage and I just say, I want to make a new network volume. And you can look at the different locations and see what type of GPUs are available. So, like if you look in Georgia, if you wanted a H200 or a H100, which are crazy powerful, they're slightly available. I'm going to choose Chicago, Illinois just for speed. Like I know this works. So I'm going to go with this 4090 here. And I'll just call this um, Comfy Demo O2. I have this Julia Child, so I'm just going to show you this and then I'll have one that actually works and is ready to go. Um, I like to make this about 200 gigabytes in order to run this file. So with a 4090. And you'll see if you leave this up for a whole month, it'll charge you $14 a month. And that's kind of the caveat of the gotcha is if you want to keep stuff on the cloud, then you have to pay for it. So I'm just going to create that and it'll pretty much instantly make that volume. And you see I got Comfy Demo O2 and then I've got Comfy Demo O1 ready to go. I think this is the one I just made right here. So I'll go deploy and just to make sure I'm going to check my pods. Oh, of course. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this one is, let me fix this name. I just don't want to mess this up because I have another one going. And this is our one that is already working. Okay, so I'm going back to that storage. I'm going to Comfy Demo O2 and I'm going to deploy this one. And I need to select my GPU. And so I'm going to get my little 4090 over here. And then I'm saying, hey, I want to run Flux. And so what Flux is basically an image generation stable diffusion model. Um, think of it like a controllable image generator where you can use things like LoRa's and ControlNet and a bunch of really cool things that I'm going to explain a little bit more in detail in just a moment. So this is Flux, and essentially all you really need to know is this is kind of the brain of the model, and it's a very high quality image generator that I would say is probably kind of the best one available right now. So, sorry, one second. Let me go back to my run pods. So what I'm looking for is to change my template, and I'm looking for something. I'm just going to type in Flux. And so they have one that is like a default kind of run pod comfy, and this probably works okay, but I actually really like this one over here by Valerian Tech. Theirs is awesome. It's called ComfyUI with Flux One Dev One Click, and then they have a version that you switch to after the first time you run it that is without, so that it's lighter and quicker, and that it's just faster to load this up. And so I know this seems like a lot because it's really complex with the run pod setup on the beginning, but this makes it so that you don't have to deal with any crazy Python stuff or like any mismatches and dependencies on stuff you already have installed. And I promise for like your first time, even though this is complex, it's absolutely the easiest way to really play with the most powerful models. So I'm going to choose that and then I'm going to name it and I'll just call this one Demo O2 and I'm going to edit my template. And this is very, very important. But if you're trying to just like explore the different type of things that are available to you, the first time you're using them, they usually have like a README file. And this one has like a nice video that shows you like what it's capable of doing. Um, and it's just like a kind of fast-paced thing that takes you through it, and they show you how to hook it up, and then really kind of how to render images out of it in a very, very fast video that's probably kind of useless. So That being said, nice README file. We have to fix our edit template here. I changed my container space, which is just my temporary storage, to about 100 gigabytes because sometimes I want to work with video models. And so here's our next got you. Like, you think this is like one click, everything's supposed to work. Well, guess what? You have to be able to give your virtual computers essentially authentication for them to work in the first place. So we need something called a Hugging Face token. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about what Hugging Face is. Think of it kind of like the GitHub of AI models. So this is just a giant open source playground. When you first log in, it'll just look like this on the home page, and you have to log in with like Google or something like that. You can search for any type of models you may want to download here. It's very useful, but in this case, what we actually need is we just need a token from here so that we can give our thing permission to download and run pod. And like you have to do this on your own personal computer as well, because these models are so powerful that they don't want people doing like nefarious things with them, like scamming people or creating bad things they shouldn't on the internet. Um, so that is one thing about these models. They are not restricted to NSFW and things like that. They're not trained out of the box to do that, but there's nothing that's stopping you from training them to do things like that, like violence and gore and stuff that some of the online models that you're running through a web browser can't do. Um, so once you're logged in, you click on your little profile icon, and we have to make something called an access token. And I know this all sounds crazy, and that's why hopefully this is recorded so you can go back and watch it if you want to try it. But inside your access tokens, we can come in here, and you will have none here to begin with. And so I'm going to create a new one, and it seems complex, but it's really, really easy. All I'm going to do is call this, and you only have to do this once. Like once you've done this, you can use it over and over again. So I'm going to call it demo token, and all I have to do is literally check the first box that says read access to content of all repos under your personal namespace. And this is for your fake computer so that it can, I mean, it's not really fake. It's a real computer that exists somewhere in a server in Illinois right now. But once we do that, we can create this token, and it's going to give us this file. And so I just copy this, and like I come back over here, and you think you would want to paste it in there, but that's not at all what we want to do. So I'll just close that for a second, and then I'll go over here to my secrets tab, and I'm going to open that in a new tab. You can go to it, but you'll just have to redo that process over again. And so I have to make a secret, and what this is an extra layer of protection for us. So I go to create a secret, I paste my value in, and I just call this demo key or whatever. You can put a description if you need one. And then I make it, and it stores it, and it makes it like really easy to use now. So all that complex stuff bakes down into being a really easy process, because now I can go edit template. I've got my 100 gigabytes there. I'm going to drop this down, and I just select this little key icon, and the demo key that I just made is waiting. So I select it, and now it's like run pod secret demo key, and it sounds all cool and covert. And so I just go set overrides, and I go to the bottom, and literally after all that stressful stuff, now we're ready to deploy on demand. And so that's launching our computer, and it builds it up for us. And this process honestly takes like 10 to 15 minutes, which is why I've already prepared one for us that's ready to go. And so I want you to see like kind of what it looks like first before we dive into the one that's already working. And I have a workflow that I can share with you guys in the chat, and a couple of the resources in case it's something you want to go back and try. I just took 23 students through this, and like there was a little bit of them pulling their hair out at first. And the thing I'll say about this whole thing is getting it installed, getting it working the first time is kind of terrible, but after that it's amazing. And so like you can see this is pulling a 18 gigabyte file. And so we'll just let that go, and we'll pretend that this is the one that's downloading. When it's finished, you'll see that it gets to about 19%. And this is kind of like our magic point of saying, hey, we're ready to run ComfyUI and do some cool, fun things. So I can go over here to connect and I'll have two different service ports. So the first service port that I have here is actually going to be ComfyUI. So I can click that and it's going to load up the default ComfyUI with like a default workflow that's like super simple. And it's just like a, does this work? Where am I at? Can I run the image? So if you get to here, you can select the model and you can absolutely hit the play button and you can run your very, very first test. And it's always slower the first time it runs. And then after the first time it runs, it's really fast. And so there we go. We made like a very unimpressive, ugly little bottle. And that's because this is a Stable Diffusion 1.5 pruned model that is absolutely not great and very old. So that's not something that's really of interest to us as, like I guess artists that are trying to get this to do what we want it to do. So the first thing that I have to do is essentially I have workflows, like anything that you have in here, you can export as a workflow and save it as a JSON, or it also is baked down into the images that you generate. So anything you create, it stores the metadata in it. So you can share it with someone else if you don't like wash that data out of it. Or if you leave it in there, then someone else can take your stuff and basically use it if they know how to. So, definitely something to be aware of. I'm going to pull in a specific workflow just for the sake of time and get things going. So this is the one I use with my students. This is for Flux Dev, and this is a whole lot more complex. So if you're taking a look at this, you'll be like, oh my gosh, what is all this crazy stuff? So up here at the top, like I'll just cut some of these things off. So this is all for my control net. And what control net does is control net allows me to essentially use like depth maps or line art or different things like that to transition my own art or a reference image into my final image structure. So like if I have, I'll show you a perfect example working of it all working in just a second. I think sometimes it's easier just to kind of visualize it in action to see kind of the results and how things pan out. And so this is a LoRa loader. And so a lot of you may or may not know what a LoRa is, but it's a low rank adaptation file. And so think of these as like building blocks, like create universal creative building blocks where you can store like a person's likeness or an art style or a location, a concept of like an animation or an action. It can essentially be anything that you design it to be. And typically these are generated from images or photos. And so, like any other AI web-based prompter, you have a prompter. It just looks a little bit more like something you would see in Unreal Engine. And to me, I use a lot of blueprints in Unreal Engine, so this felt right at home to me to drag around a bunch of spaghetti nodes and hook things up. So for like you don't have to have any of this stuff for it to work. And I'm just right clicking and bypassing it so it would skip it if I run this thing. So we have to have our models downloaded, and that's what this is doing really nicely for us. So if it didn't do this for us, for example, like to run this on my own, I had to go in and go manually set all this up in my folder structure, which isn't that terrible. I'll just show you what it looks like because these things are the same, and I'll show you how we access our files for this once we download a couple things really quick. So essentially I have like my models folder and it has things called like the LoRa's and the individual models for everything. And this is just like the boring stuff, but you don't have to fool with figuring all this out to begin with if you just go in and use something like RunPod and a one-click setup. So pretty much everything is here for me, but I'm going to come up to a manager, and this is basically just a utility that lets you update things and download new models and do all kind of crazy stuff like that. And so for my particular workflow, I have to have two things that I don't have. And it's okay if you don't get this, like some of the stuff. I just want you to kind of see how it works. So I'm gonna go Flux One Dev control net union. And this is basically just what allows me to run those depth maps and those line art files and transition an image to control what comes out of my AI. So I'm going to come in here and just install this really fast. And even though it's 6 GB, because I'm on a computer that is like, I have a terrible little, like, I mean, it's not terrible for what it is. It's like a little T-Mobile 5G Wi-Fi box running all my internet. So it doesn't matter that my download and upload speeds aren't crazy good because this computer's like hardwired to, gigabit, guaranteed by the package that you're paying to rent it. So you can be in a coffee shop like running an absolute powerhouse server or 8 of them at a time if you want to. So, I mean, you can do more than 8. You can really run as many as you can handle. That's just about as many as I can handle running at a time. So I also need to grab one more thing here called depth anything v2, and this is just because of my particular workflow. And so I'm going to download that, and then I have to refresh it, and it tells me it's all good, and it is. And so typically I would go on ahead and update it, but I want to do one thing first before I do that. So the way that we actually get to our file structure, you're like, hey, this is just a web browser. How do I get to my files? Well, that's right over here. We launched this up and it's going to create something called Jupyter Notebook, and it's got a token that we have to have for the password. So where some things allow us to just log in without the password, but this requires one. So I'm going to go back to my run pods and I literally go to log files and I just pull a token. And so I type in token and it's going to have that key stored so that it can give me permission to have access to my files. And this is really to protect you. Like, it was very annoying to me at first and I was extremely frustrated until I figured it out. And once I did, I was like, okay, this is easy and it makes sense. And I paste this token in and I hit login, and it's like if you can finally breathe and see that you have a computer. It doesn't look like your Windows or Apple computer so much, but it's a computer, trust me. And so you'll see a friendly folder here called ComfyUI. And so inside of there's all of these files that I've had to, manually set up. Not everything, but the models, you have to set it up for different types of things you want to set up and run. Because like I said, this is an open source universal system. So the only thing I need here is a couple LoRa's because I want to show you what they are. And so these are custom created files, and I'll show you what I use to create those momentarily. But inside of my LoRa's folder, I'm just going to drag these in. I have a Flux Realism LoRa. There it is right there. And so I'll drag that in and I'll let it upload. And you can upload more than one thing at a time, but I try to do it with huge files and it got a little sketchy. So if it's anything bigger than, like a gigabyte, to be honest, like I pull it through GitHub. Like, I'll just pull it from the source repository instead of trying to pull it from my own stuff because it's just faster. Like I said, I've got this terrible little T-Mobile box in here instead of like real internet. So I'm going to come back to here, and I have a LoRa for a character that's a CG character from Real Illusion called Camilla. It's their main kind of character as one of their demo characters for their system. And so the way I've trained her is this is actually a little bit of an old file for me, and I used 76 photos at the time, and I later found out that that was way too many photos for training your LoRa files. So they don't need that many. They only need like 26 to 41, and you get significantly better results. And especially with these fake characters that I'm using a realism booster on to bring out the best of, then the important part about that is that I found that if I used any more than like 26 to 41 images, then the character comes through looking more fake and less like a real human. And so that was just like something through like making hundreds of LoRa's and doing like tons of testing, and just like really diving in here is like kind of what led me to. So I'm going to wait till this uploads, and I promise we're almost to a point where we can start to make some cool things. But I didn't want to show you this and leave you at a point where you had no access or no way to figure out how to get to it. And regardless, I think even if you lightly understand the comfy stuff and, you begin to wrap your head around cloud computing and how that can serve you in whatever field you work in, it's a very useful tool as well if you don't, have access to a $29,000 graphics card because not too many people do. Um, and just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like you see, I'm running this on 4090s because this workflow doesn't require that I need anything more. Okay, so everything's loaded up and it's happy. So we've got our workflow going. I'm going to actually unbypass all this because I'm going to run it with the full juice because I've made you guys look at the boring stuff long enough, and I think it's time to show you some fun images. So the last kind of painful thing I have to do here is I have to update all, which is going to allow it to register those new files that I installed. And then I'm going to restart it one last time, and we can actually run our workflow. And so like I said, I can show you the easy stuff, but that's not what you probably really want to see. You want to see that like juicy good, like high quality AI and why you would want to waste your time learning how to do this. And so that's what I would rather show you. So, you know, see, we're at 4:33, so I got to be a little careful with time. Um, in terms of 3D like 3D mesh creation, I still like there is a system called Huanyan 3D that is by Tencent, and it's a very good program as well that you can install locally. But I still really think that Meshi is kind of the best tool on the block for 3D model creation in AI right now. Is it absolutely perfect? No, but it's pretty great out of the box. See, we're waiting on that to install. So I'm hoping we'll have a little bit of time to talk about this, but while that's running in the background and just doing its little update, I figured I'd show you a couple things I made earlier today. So I'm just working on like a little environment for a demo tomorrow for my students. I'm making like a 70s style kind of living room. And what I do is I use Flux, that image generator that I'm about to fire up and show you in just a second, to create the backplates inside of Unreal Engine. So I can just make like a really awesome, super realistic or stylistic 8K backplate that I've upres that I can bring in, and then I don't have to do near as much work to be able to bump out quick cinematics. And I come over here to something like Meshy or like even pulling stuff from Quixel for like rocks and things like that to build out your foreground is absolutely incredible. But for these like kind of foreground assets, like I found that Meshy is really awesome because you can just bump out things and like, is it perfect? Like that's a little nasty, but if this thing's like sitting all the way in the back of my environment in Unreal Engine with like some pillows that I put on there and I've got this table in front of it and characters walking around in front of it, it's probably good enough. And this took me all of like maybe 2 minutes to make this thing. So I'm still trying to dial in like my kind of coffee table, and it keeps putting these like modern televisions on top of it and messing them up a little bit. So I haven't got one that I'm 100% happy with for that yet. And I have got bad things that don't look good. Like, wow, I was trying to convert a Hank Aaron bobblehead earlier, and it's atrocious, like what it did to that. But considering in like 2 seconds it spit that out, like if you have any type of 3D skills, there you can probably clean it up. But I wouldn't even waste my time with something that came out that bad whenever, like you're getting instant generation sometimes of, something like this. And, like, so out of the box, is it great? No, like that's sloppy. But you could easily sculpt this. You can easily clean this up and bring that mesh back in and re-blast it with textures and images. So, I just didn't want to miss out on all this 3D. We're going to get back to this. Let's check on that again on our Comfy. So everything's ready. It's finally installed. We're going to restart it. And I promise we'll get back to the 3D as well and use the most of this time we have together. So it's restarting, and then it's going to pop up a little window that says like, hey, everything's restarted. Do you want to refresh the browser? And that's when we know that we're good to go. So I'm going to confirm and reload it. And I'll show you what this actually does after all of this complex nodes and super exciting gray screens. So I have kind of some pre-set up images for this because I made these Lauras, and so I'll show you what Camilla looks like. So I had all these videos rendered straight out of like iClone of Camilla. So you'll see she is a CG character. Oh, that is, come on, there it goes. So very, very 3D, right? Like not super high quality, not even like MetaHuman out of the box or anything like that. Like you can like that's kind of part of the brilliance of this demo and like what this thing is going to do. So I'm going to come into my Camilla selects and I have one that I'm looking for that I've already kind of set up for this demo. I changed my screen scaling and of course I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Camilla Cute DS 46. Sorry. It's a very specific image I'm looking for. It would do it with other ones. I have a control for this. Where on earth did I put it? Let's see. What is it called? It says right there. Sorry. This one. Okay. We got it. So you can just drag in any image that you want to use for your source. Like, so this is just coming straight out of iClone. It's a render, and I've got all my models loaded up. I've made sure everything's good. I'm going to just double check my LoRa's and make sure they're working because that's something I custom uploaded. And I'm running this with a 65% Camilla LoRa and a 35% Flux Realism LoRa. And you can run this much, much higher. And sometimes I try to play between, I start at like 70-30, and male characters tend to have stronger LoRa, so I can run them at about 0.55. And typically female characters, I can push them down to like 0.65 and still hold everything that I want to happen to happen. So I'm running this at a base of 1920 by 1080. The model is trained at 1280 by 720, but you can push it up and get 1080 base out of it. And I'm just going to fire this off and let it go. And so we'll see that it's running through. It's taking my image here and it's running it through my depth anything V2 preprocessor. And so this is our control net. This is where we say this is our reference image. And this is the depth map that I generated of that. So I'm going to use this to control how the output of my image. And I'm running this control net at a strength of about 50% or 0.48 in this case, just slightly lower than 50%. And so it's going to do that. It's loading up the model because it's the first time. And I'm going to open up my terminal window because I just get used to running it this way. I can see if anything goes wrong. I can see if there's any type of issues, but it's really just that first time you load it, it takes like honestly so much longer. And then once you run it the first time, it'll be like probably 1/10 of the speed to run through the workflow. And this is, like I said, one of the most high quality kind of workflows that you can run. And even if you come away with this, like understanding what a LoRa is, or like are a little bit more interested in ComfyUI, I can, show you a couple of resources before we get out of here. Let me check my time again. Ooh, it's getting close, 4:41. I got to be really careful here. I think we'll get through an image without much issue. Here it
Max,
goes.
you can go until 5.
Okay. Cool, cool. I'll use it up a little bit there then. So what it's doing now is it's processing the control net model. Flux does not use a negative prompt encode. It only uses a positive, so we can talk about that a little bit while we're here. Like ideally, I would even structure this out a little bit better than it is right here. Like, so I'll describe who my character is, and what they look like. And so in this case, Camilla is the trigger word for my LoRa. Like, so I have to call this underscore or lowercase Camilla to be able to call her. Um, And so that ensures that it's going to use this LoRa in my generation. And I'm also using realism. And so like anything like realistic or whatever kind of pulls that one. It doesn't really care so much. Um, I also like to describe, so I describe the character, describe their hair, their age, kind of what they look like. Um, Go in and then describe your background in great detail and go through that. And then so you'll see this is kind of what I got on my first try out of the box. And then I also like to put in, we'll just finish talking about the prompt really quick before we go over to that. So I like to put in keywords like cinematic or movie scene, and it really likes actually for you to describe the camera and the lens. And something I didn't do here that I do now is I'll do like f1.8 and like even dial in like the f-stop to try to like control the aperture of the camera so I can get things that are softer and look more like what I want. It loves words like anamorphic, like if you're trying to get like an anamorphic lens look, and bokeh lighting terms super powerful there. Anything within about 150 words, it likes things a little bit direct. You don't have to get too romantic with it, to be honest. And so that's just my first one out of the box. It'll give you lots of different variations of it, but you can see from the control like input from iClone from the CG character to what's coming out of the push, like the way my good friend from the BBC kind of worded this is he's like, it's just a deeper render, mate. Um, and that's kind of what I think about it too. Like like you hear a lot of people say AI is not art and AI is not this, but if you're using it like at a very high level of control and you're using your own source material to guide it or your own art style and your own source, then I don't really see much different than the things I've been doing where I've been hopping on Quixel and downloading all kind of things that I didn't make or all kind of texture packs that I didn't make or metahumans that I didn't make. Um, other than, that they were all like piggybacked on other artists as well. And I think that this is really fun because the first time like really ever, somebody can be a new artist that's a novice and they can really challenge and rival the render quality of what somebody like previously could only do at the highest levels. And that's scary for some people that depend on it for a living, and it's exciting for other people that are hoping to start making a living, I believe, or those that just kind of are looking for new avenues. So this is essentially Flux. We can run it again. It'll just queue up another seed and give me another iteration, probably with different lighting, different seed values. And you can tweak this too. So like I think her hair still looks a little bit too CG. So for this, if I was gonna try to change it, I would bump this realism up maybe to like even as far as 0.85 or 0.95, and I would even risk bringing Camilla down to like zero point 0.6. But I've got a lot of really good results even at this range, and I will say that the best results come kind of on the edge of control and dreaming. So what that means is you're gonna get bad things, you're gonna get weird stuff that doesn't look great and is not impressive to really much anybody. But you have to make those bad seeds and you have to run those bad images to get the good stuff. And so let me take you back here, and I'm just gonna show you a video sample, like really quick. So this is one I made of Camilla with Duke's mayonnaise the other day ago. This one's not talking, like this is just she's just like babbling in this video. She's not really like doing controlled talking, but that doesn't mean that I can't do that because I do a lot of that. Um, Let me go to my D drive and I'll just show you. This is something I made for the AI. Or I'd rather show you something a little shorter, honestly, just because for sake of time. So where's my renders? Renders. Okay. So and so this is just driven from one image, but like that's nothing now. Like we're absolutely like I'm working on some really cool tools right now that I can't really like fully disclose or talk about yet, but they give you like such a high level of control, like just feeding like incredibly, it's pretty much just think like video to video transfer from your timeline in whatever CG application that you're running. So you just get things absolutely the best you can, and you can feed that back to get better quality results out of it. Um, and then when you just want to play, you can push your characters out and make them do all kind of crazy cool stuff. Like, for example, here's Kevin, another character I have, and this is just him as a soldier, kind of walking in a battlefield. And this was like one of my early tests with this model, but like this stuff just came out last week. Like it constantly is changing, and you absolutely like never know what's going to be dropping the next day and what new tool you're going to be empowered with. And I think for anybody that's kind of scared of AI, like, VFX was scary, 3D is scary, all this stuff is scary to somebody, you know. So like I would just say, think of something that you don't like to do and see how AI can help you not have to do that. And just make your life a little bit easier. Dial in on one little part of workflow. And if you have any questions, reach out. I'm going to be teaching way more classes about this type of stuff at GSU, and different types of presentations whenever I get opportunities and have time to work that in to everything. I really wanted to show a little bit more about Meshi, but I don't think we really have too much time for that. But I promise, like you can literally download this and start using it without much of my help. Just know it has extremely powerful tools for text to 3D, and then you have like image to 3D. So, like just for example, the boombox did not work out great, but I will just make it generate one for the heck of it. So I can create a new image, and you'll see this uses Flux Dev and Flux Context, which is actually the newer version of this that's not available to us without API calls. So I'll tell it to make an image, and it's going to just make an image of an ultra realistic boombox. And like I said, I think it did a terrible job at the boombox. Like absolutely, it does not do a great job with hard surface objects. Like it just doesn't. It's not great at it. And so I could regenerate these. I could try to make more, but just for the point of taking you through the workflow, like let's say these were great and beautiful and I loved them, then I can say image to 3D, and it's going to take those images that I made, and then it's going to kick that out and make it into a 3D model. And I got the couch and the table literally in one shot, but I've tried this boombox like 15 times and it's still pretty terrible. So some things you may still want to use Blender or Maya or whatever your favorite 3D modeling tool is, if you can do it better and faster than this can. But um, it also has tons of models that are available in the community. You can download any of these as a starting point that you can generate off of. Or you can just download them and send them directly through plugin to like Unreal Engine or Unity or Character Creator or whatever you're trying to integrate with this stuff. Um, it's all available to you. And I got a sample for you actually. Sorry, I downloaded one. This was one thing I really, really wanted to make sure I showed you guys. So let me open this up. So here's an example of some work that my coworker John Martin has been working on. Let me see. I didn't mean to open that with Photoshop. It's too slow. All right, go away, Photoshop. We just need photos. Um, so this was the reference image that he created of the zombie, and from that zombie, he was able to, generate it and then bring it in through auto setup, or basically through AccuRig to rig it for Reallusion tools. And so he put a skeleton in it automatically. Even you can even go in and rig the face and things like that if you want to, um, and try to like dial things in. And you know, very like literally within minutes, you can have even a temporary stand-in character until you have a chance to like refine it and begin to see your vision like very quickly. And, I think these tools aren't perfect yet, but I do think that, you got to be playing with them, because anywhere they can save you time. And if they're far enough in the background and they really don't matter, like why not take advantage of being able to bump out animated characters like very, very quickly and in a way that we've never really been able to do before. Um, so, like I said, they're not perfect, but if these things are 30 feet back in your scene, and it's dark, you're probably not going to see them anyways, especially if there's a little smoke and fog in your haunted house zombie scene. So, really fun and accessible, and tools are getting better and better every single day, with, lots of different, fun things. And there's nothing that says you can't take this, feed it back to AI with a control net, and then upres it all again as another video. So, limitless possibilities and ideas available to you in the future. And so I know I've talked a lot and I've showed you guys a whole lot. And so the last thing I want to show you is, let's say you've cranked up that run pod and you're like, you're done working and you're like, oh my gosh, this thing's charging me 70 cents an hour. What do I do now? So first off, you can right click it and save your images directly to your computer to download them, or you can go to your Jupyter pod and get them from your ComfyUI output folder. Those images will also all be here available for you to right click and download there that way. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I got to stop charging myself. I'm losing all this money. I'm done working. So we close that one. We close that one. We go to our pods and we can guilt-free terminate this thing. And I'll just go on ahead and terminate that other. Well, I'll leave it down. So the day's over. It's like a whole new day. I'm ready to start the thing back up. All you would do is go back to ComfyUI demo 01 that you have, the one you've created. I'm going to choose my GPU, and just to show you that final step, you're ready to run it the next day. We type in Flux again, and this time we would use the one that says without dev1 because it goes so much faster. We go in, we put our little hugging face token, which is still waiting on us because we've already taken the time to create that. And, I change that container to 100, and then I just set overrides and fire it back up. And once it launches through the process again, guess what? You're ready to run again. And this time you don't have to download 20 gigabytes worth of files or upload all those custom LoRa's and things that you work so hard to do. So that's essentially a whole lot of stuff through a fire hose in a very, very short amount of time. And I hope that kind of at least opens up the doors of some of what's possible with ComfyUI. And let's see, while I have this open, I'll show you that it also can just do super cool images of anything that you want. I'll run one on my local setup. Whoop. Bypass. Turn off Camilla. T5. Sorry, I didn't set these up on this one. Where are you at? We'll just use that 16. That'll work. Where? Yeah, that one. Clip sensor L. I just had to make sure these were plugged in, and then it'll go. So we can just type in an ultra realistic image of a cyberpunk workshop with a giant mech robot posing in the center. I mean, it'll do anything. It doesn't have to be that crazy, Let's see, we'll go close up. I'll say sparks flying, smoke, ultra realistic, movie scene, blah, blah, blah. And then we can just, same exact way, fire. Oh, my VAE loader. I forgot one more. So there we go. It'll tell you if you mess up. If you mess up, it's going to highlight it bright red. It's going to be like, hey, you forgot to plug this thing in that you were supposed to plug in. Same kind of thing. This is just a local version. It's going to run it. And so this is what my students just recently for AVHA, Asian Virtual Human Association 48-hour competition. They made a 3-minute film essentially with Unreal Engine and the LED wall camera tracked, but they were using this to generate all of their 8K backplates for their project and then just throwing stuff in the foreground in terms of Quixel, lighting everything there, and then coming back and actually having some physical props in the foreground. And you can even like really heavily rely on the stuff to like go back and add VFX or anything that you could possibly, that you're weak at. Use it for the things that you're not good at, and then, continue to do the things you love and that you are really good at. And that's kind of, my take of how I like to use AI. And, hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing this insane madness in this short amount of time. But we'll let this image render, and then I'll take any questions if we have time for it, and that's about it.
Great, Max. Thank you so much. I know we're waiting for the image to render, but I think this is a really great prep for our tech stack for when we have our conversation next month. Um, and I know that this seems complicated, which it is. I mean, this is a course that Max is teaching that is over the summer. It's a 7 week course, and I'm following along, and I'm 2 weeks in, and uh, and I do have a Linux programming background, but it's once you set it up, the whole thing is how much control and how much money. You're right. And so that's really kind of and how creative it's going to be. So I think this is really interesting, but you can kind of compare it to like the Midjourney's newest video stuff and where you want control and where you want, like Max was saying, the dreamy part of it. It's really interesting. So we'll let that image show, and then I hope you all have some questions. It's almost there.
Hey, I'll throw in a question. Max, I'm curious, what kind of documentation do you create for your students when you're walking them through? Like, obviously, you got to give us the fire hose version to get 7 weeks into an hour. But, I'm always curious about what you feel like for giving documentation that's not just a live demo walking through. How do you approach that?
So I have the course lectures where I record everything and take them through it live in Discord, but I also break down each one of the installs into a recorded video as well. And then I have everything kind of like also stepped out on iCollege and Discord in terms of like guides for the week and the specific assignments. And the way I even like the way I can kind of I'm able to accomplish doing all that so much of these things is like, I've probably had like over 200 pages of conversation with my chat GPT. And I've worked on it like a lot of extensive projects with it. So like I'll get it to give me like kind of base framework, and then I'll take that base framework and then just like get rid of the stuff I don't like, and then focus in on each individual section and start trying to like fill it in with either images or workflows that I have created to go alongside with it, or just additional information or links to the installation process, or any type of other resource that you may think is necessary like for that particular lesson. But like I'm not gonna lie, a little bit this is the first time I've got a chance to actually teach this in the classroom at this level and it's a little bit of wild wild west in terms of you know how it goes. Like, I have students that get the run pod and get their whole homework finished within 2 hours after class, and then I have other students that show up like 2 days after it was due, and just you can tell that they just barely did what they had to get it in. But the ones that are running with it, like the work right out of the box has been like exceptional. I would say even from like a student standpoint, like I can just show you it. So so I gave them my Laura's that I made of Morgan Freeman and Biggie. Here's Elizabeth's work from the class. Like she's made a Laura of herself, and I think it turned out like really, really great. So it messes up some things like here and there, but it does like a really, really good job, and it's fun to learn how to control it. Her horror Laura work is really awesome as well. With the black and white style. I had a student that made one of like Ted type character. I totally told them that, right now this is for academic, and if they use things that are not of their own creation or that they sourced, that it's totally, technically illegal if you try to sell this or do anything with it like that. Um, like you obviously can't take Morgan Freeman's identity and start like just giving his like creating commercial products with his identity. Like that probably would not be a very good idea. Um, this is the Bill Nye one that I made, and some of the things that the students have been creating. This is one of my students in my class, like the Laura he made of himself, and kind of the results that he was able to create with it. And it's like not always 100% accurate, and that's where I was saying, like sometimes I throw 50 images at it to try to get that perfect seed, or sometimes even more if I'm trying to blend multiple characters or multiple characters and a prop and an environment. And then you have to like do crazy stuff or like double trend Lauras and do just wild things like that. In terms of resources, if you're looking to get started, I will just say like real quickly, Pixorama or Pixorama is really, really good for beginners. Um, like his series of videos are absolutely great. This is where I started, and then there's definitely like much more complex workflows and people out there that are doing crazy stuff. But sometimes you just need a place to put your feet to understand where you're going with it. And his videos are really easy to follow, and he gives you the workflows for free inside the workflow. And so, like, what I meant by that is literally it stores the workflow in the image that you create. Like, for example, I can drag this image in, and there's the workflow that was used to create it, and the prompt that was used to create it, and everything. Like, it's literally baked into the image unless you wash it. So, pretty sweet. Hopefully, that kind of answers that question.
Well, yeah, and Jonathan, I was going to say another
Thanks.
thing about what Max is doing is it's all online. I do think, Max, if you had 2 hours in class, that they would be able to set this up a little more easily because they would be right there with a question ready. So even extra kudos to you for doing it completely online.
Oh yeah, I gave him an extra whole day to get this up and going because I knew it was going to be troublesome. And I even had to go sit with one student for like 4 hours to get it up and going because he was trying to install it locally and like didn't ask me how to do it, just went and tried to do it and messed up all his Python and like environment variables. And totally it wouldn't work at all. So, like yeah, you can go like if you know what you're doing, like you can go here and download it for Windows. You can even run it on Mac if you want to, and it runs great on Linux as well. But I will say, if you do this, like you kind of got to know that if you don't have like you need GitHub installed and you need Python kind of in like the right version of Python installed and all kind of like kitschy stuff that like if you do it wrong, it writes it into the environment path variables and can cause like real problems, if that makes any sense. So like it's much safer for those first times to like actually just try to run it in something like this. And so like when I'm done, I terminate these bad boys. Like I actually didn't show you that, but I terminate them so that they're not running anymore.
Are there other questions?
Yeah, I had a
Yeah.
quick question, Max. This is great. I'm really curious about what the student population you teach. Are they not everything from like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, grad school to are these like computer science major? Are these art students? Is it a mix of both? Do they typically have like a good understanding of how computers work when they sit down, or do you have to walk through a lot of that stuff as well?
All different levels, mostly game design students, and some of them were like completely terrified. Some of them got mad and like went and like reported me and were mad. But life will find a way, and hopefully this will pay off for them in the future. And I told him I was like, even if you hate this and you don't want to understand it, I was like, if you totally believe that this is the enemy, then you should at least know what your enemy looks like and what they're about to do to you.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Thanks. That's
Um,
that's helpful to know.
yeah, and I mean, like the students, the ones that have caught on to it, like so for some kids that have probably never felt any success or just spent years making stuff that like didn't live up to their dreams or what they wanted to like be able to pop this open and feel instant success and actually like hit that super ultra realistic like high quality bar that takes forever to even dream of hitting, even with metahumans are like some of the best like stuff out there. It's just so hard. And like, is all this perfect yet? No, but like, I mean, I'd hate to see where it's going to be in 5 years from now, or even 1 year from now. It's just crazy.
It's interesting to me because I feel like so computer science people and data analysts have all been using cloud compute for a long time, and obviously really high end special effects people. But now cloud it's kind of like cloud compute for everyone, and that is and especially the fact that ComfyUI is open source. Anybody can make nodes for all of this. And there was a guy who came on for a little bit, Max, the Black Mixture folks. They hopped on for a little bit, but they're using ComfyUI even for app development and other kinds
Oh
of
yeah.
things because it doesn't have to just be. So it's just really interesting tool, and it is. And I think it's quite amazing that Max has gotten these 26 students up and running. And I think there's going to be ways to refine it where it's not quite so arduous, but it's really exciting, interesting stuff because
This,
you can get a clean account for $30 a month, and then you get like 10 videos, and then you're maxed out. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead, Max. I didn't mean to
Oh,
interrupt.
I was just saying, no, no, totally. I was interrupting you. Like I was just saying, this is, so before I started, like before I came to present today, this is what I was working on is basically updating my video workflow that I've been running locally. So this is running on a Quadro 6000 Ada that costs 77 cents an hour to rent with 48 gigs of VRAM, and this is running that video workflow. And there's not a pre-built setup to run this because this stuff just came out like last week. So I just modified the other one, and I learned that it was really, really easy. Like I could pretty much get my chat GPT to basically just write the little git commands to pull the model files directly to this computer instead of trying to drag and drop those 30 gigabyte files. And like it's just so much faster to let it do it there, and more realistic. But like like I said, I didn't even know if this was gonna run. I left it running like while we were doing this, and that's the beauty. I can train 8, 10 LoRa's at a time while working on a workflow while doing this, and never bog down my computer that's still running Unreal Engine or whatever I want.
That's awesome. I have two questions. Number one, is this the real Elizabeth we're seeing on screen, Elizabeth, or is this your model that's talking to us now? That's my
No,
first question. The second one is for Max and for Elizabeth or anybody else, I guess. But how do you I think this is awesome. I imagine from a institutional teaching perspective, is this difficult to get like campus computing on board with? Like, what is a strategy for that?
It's impossible. It's
Yeah,
impossible. That's why RunPod is awesome because all they need is a web browser and it doesn't matter. It's like what roads?
gotcha.
that is
Like
really that's a great question, Pat, because we have such a huge issue with that. Even running Unreal, if they could get Unreal to run in a in a cloud compute, that would be amazing. Maybe they're working on that, but this is a level playing field. The only thing is like if $14 a month or $20 a month is too much for a student, but it shouldn't be because they don't have any. Sorry, my they don't have any books or anything.
Yeah, it's a weird time to live in, at least for us. I feel like I get less pushback about, hey, can we get $150 for some kids to do this for a semester than I do when they say, well, we can't install that software because every time a kid logs in, it's got to create their profile, and that takes 10 minutes, and now your class is a fifth of the way over. Like it's like almost reversed to where it used to be 5 years ago, where they're like, well, we have no money for this, but if you want it put on the computer, like we can do, if you can get to it, that's fine. So yeah, that's really interesting. I'm not glad to hear that it's problematic for you, but that's our experience as well.
Well, and 100%. And the great thing is they can do it from home. You know,
hmm
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. And
huge.
The level playing field thing is also really good. I feel like when you can for equity issues, right? Like this doesn't matter, whether you come to campus and you've got a really awesome computer, that's cool, but it's not a requirement for our class. And anybody can run it from any machine. I think I think there's a lot of that makes it really appealing for finding support.
I really want to find somebody with a very old computer, like the oldest computer we can get that runs a decent web browser, and like as an art exhibit, and have like it just like connected with like a H100, just like rendering out create something crazy. Like I think that would be really fun. I don't have anything that old, but it would be cool.
Yeah, like the
I
Yeah.
gotta
people
find.
that will put in the new internal like amazing specs on those machines, but in a really old tower box or something. It's kind of a sleeper.
Yeah. Even just the legitimate old box, as long as it runs the web browser and it can like manage to play like I guess process what's on screen, that's really all it's got to handle is that. But that might be complicated. I don't know. I've never tried. Maybe one day I'll have enough time to do that. I'm sure I can find one laying around the university.
Disconnected. Well, thank you all for those of you who continued staying on. But that was great overview, Max. I've watched that video like 3 or 4 or 5 times because I've struggled, but I'm so excited to have it set up. It's really remarkable. And if I could stop being on vacation, I would be able to get to play to work and playing with all of this stuff. So, thank you all for coming, and we'll send out. I think we've sent out all the stuff about what's coming up next, and I will just thank you, Max, so much. That was great, and this was recorded, and we'll send it out. And thank you all, and we'll see you in a month
Yeah.
for the Tech Stack talk.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Super
Bye,
excited.
Camilla.
See you guys.